Most people do not have an income problem first. They have an accounting problem. They look at a salary and call it security. I look at a salary and ask one rude question before I respect it. What survives after the shadow tax is done with you? That is the number that matters. I have watched people brag about making $90,000 a year while living like a distressed company. Their car is tired, their nerves are shot, their evenings are gone, their savings account looks like a puddle after a drought, their calendar belongs to other people, their mind belongs to the next meeting before the current one is over. They call this stability because the payroll arrives on time. I call it a polished form of dependency. The cruel part is that the dependency is hidden inside respectable language. Commute, professional image, convenience, networking, decompression, treat yourself. None of that sounds dangerous. None of it sounds like a tax. None of it looks like a predator. But a predator does not need sharp teeth if it can wear a tie and bill you in tiny pieces. I want to talk to you the way I would talk to a manager whose numbers look pretty on the top line and rotten underneath. Revenue is vanity if the margin is broken. A person earning $65,000 a year can be poorer, more fragile, and more trapped than somebody earning $45,000 with lower friction, lower stress, and more control over their hours. The first person has a bigger paycheck. The second person has a better business. Your life is a business whether you admit it or not. Your labor is the product. Your energy is the inventory. Your attention is the machinery. Your time is the plant. And the shadow tax is the hidden expense line that decides whether you are building freedom or just moving cash through a leaking pipe. Most people never calculate it because the system does not need your enthusiasm. It only needs your fatigue. A tired person is easier to bill. A tired person orders convenience. A tired person finances what a calm person would delay. A tired person confuses relief with reward. A tired person pays to stop feeling for 2 hours and then calls the whole thing normal. That is why I want to make this painfully clear. The biggest lie in middle-class finance is not that spending is harmless. The biggest lie is that gross income is the same as useful income. It is not. Gross income is your headline. Useful income is what is left after the shadow tax takes its share of your money, your time, your decision quality, and your future compounding. Those are 4 different taxes. Most people only see one. They see the government line on the paycheck, and they groan. Fine. That one is obvious. Federal tax, state tax, payroll tax. It hurts, but at least it announces itself. The more dangerous taxes are the ones your employer does not withhold directly because they know you will volunteer to pay them yourself. The first is the access tax. That is the money you pay simply to be allowed to earn the money. Gas tolls, parking, train passes, car maintenance, faster depreciation because the vehicle is really a work appliance disguised as personal freedom. Office clothes, shoes you would never buy if no one at work could see them. Dry cleaning. Haircuts kept on a schedule you did not choose. Lunches bought because the day was engineered to make preparation feel expensive. Coffee not because you love coffee, but because you need an artificial bridge to get across the afternoon. You call these lifestyle costs. I call them entry fees. Imagine buying a business where every morning you have to pay for permission to open the door. That is what a lot of jobs are. They are franchises of obedience. You pay to put on the uniform, pay to arrive, pay to look agreeable, pay to stay awake, and then call the remaining dollars your wage. That is bad enough. But the second tax is where the trap gets intelligent. The time tax, a corporation that bought 40 hours from you, almost never receives only 40 hours from you. It gets the preparation before the work. It gets the commute into the work. It gets the dead zones around the work. It gets the nervous system after the work. It gets your Sunday evening. It gets the mental preload before a Monday. It gets the little burst of dread in the shower. It gets the inbox check at dinner. It gets the low-grade vigilance that follows you home like the smell of smoke. People are very sloppy with time math because they only count badge in and badge out hours. That is like saying a factory only costs money when the machines are spinning. Nonsense. Setup time is cost. Shutdown time is cost. Maintenance is cost. Waste is cost. Idle captivity is cost. If your workday is 9 to 5. But you wake earlier to prepare, commute an hour total, remain geographically trapped at lunch, and need a decompression block when you return home. Your employment may own 11 hours of your day to buy 8 hours of formal labor. The difference is not free. The difference is where your life is disappearing. Then comes the third tax, the nervous system tax. This is the one polite people avoid, because it sounds soft until you price it correctly. Stress changes spending. Stress changes patience. Stress what you buy, what you tolerate, and how much future pain you will trade away for present relief. A calm person can batch cook on Sunday. An exhausted person opens an app on Friday and lets a stranger drive $40 of sedation to the front door. A calm person can compare insurance policies. An overwhelmed person auto-renews. A calm person can walk after dinner. A depleted person pours a drink, calls it recovery, and then rents distraction for the rest of the night. I am not moralizing about any of this. I am doing what I have always done. I am allocating capital. If a job reliably makes you spend money to repair the damage done by the job, that repair spending belongs in the cost structure of the job. It is not random. It is not separate. It is part of the machine. The Friday takeout is not just dinner. It is a symptom invoice. The impulse vacation is not just leisure. It is deferred rebellion. The shopping spree is not self-expression. It is a numbing expense. The endless subscriptions, the premium coffees, the little frictions you barely register, the convenient food, the quick escapes, the better seat, the small indulgence. Because you deserve something after a brutal week, all of it sits on one ledger line in my mind. Damage control. That line is usually much larger than people admit, because admitting it would force them to confront something terrifying. The job is not merely extracting their hours. It is changing their entire spending pattern in order to make the job survivable. That is not compensation. That is dependency engineering. Now we get to the fourth tax, and this is where the whole thing turns from annoying to tragic. The compounding tax, a dollar spent, is never just a dollar spent when it becomes repetitive and when the alternative was ownership. A $5 daily habit does not stay a $5 habit when it is repeated through tiredness for years. It becomes a quiet transfer from your present self to everyone else who owns the companies you buy from. That is what repeated consumption is. It is a series of miniature votes against your future ownership. I do not care whether the item is coffee, convenience food, rushed rides, extra fees, or the kind of premium entertainment package people keep because they are too tired to cancel it. Once something becomes recurring, it stops being a purchase and becomes a system. Systems are what make people rich or keep them tame. If $10 a day disappears from your life because work makes you too depleted to organize better alternatives, you are not losing $10. You are losing the seed, the yield on the seed, the years on the yield, and the psychological habit of withholding easy money from impulse systems. That matters because wealth is not built in dramatic moments most of the time. It is built in the silent protection of surplus. You do not become free because one day you made a heroic decision. You become free because for years the gap between what came in and what went out was protected with almost religious seriousness. That gap is sacred. That gap buys optionality. That gap buys dignity. That gap buys refusal power. If your job consumes the gap directly through obvious expenses and indirectly through stress spending, then the job is not just underpaying you, it is taxing your escape route. That is the part most people never see. They think the problem is that they are not earning enough. Sometimes that is true. Often it is only partially true. Many people are not trapped because income is low. They are trapped because margin is low. Worker logic obsesses over gross. Owner logic obsesses over spread. A weak spread can make a respectable salary worthless. A strong spread can make a modest salary powerful. This is why some people making 6 figures look like hostages, and some people making far less begin to build real momentum. One group is high revenue and no margin. The other is lower revenue and disciplined margin with less shadow tax exposure. I would rather own the second business every day of the week. Let me show you how the fraud works in plain English. Suppose a person proudly says, "I make $30 an hour, fine." I ask what arrives after taxes. Maybe that number falls into the mid-20s. Then I ask what work-required expenses exist. Only because the work exists: commuting, appearance, meals, convenience, paid help at home because the schedule stole the ability to do basic tasks. Maybe that takes another meaningful slice. Then I ask how many real hours the job owns, not the brochure hours: grooming, commute, mandatory lunch captivity, night recovery, Sunday dread, random after-hours response time. Maybe 40 becomes 55 or 60. Now divide the truly retained cash by the truly surrendered hours. That number is often so much uglier than people expect that they recoil from it. Good, they should. Reality is useful precisely because it ruins lazy stories. Once you understand your real number, almost every purchase in your life changes shape. You stop asking whether something costs $100. You start asking whether it costs 8 actual hours of your life after the shadow tax has already done its work. That is a better question because it reconnects spending to sacrifice. The market economy is, but one of the ugliest is this one. It trains you to compare prices to pre-tax identity and not to post-tax life. It wants you to think in salary language, not surrender language. Salary language is flattering. Surrender language is clarifying. A watch does not cost $300. It might cost 3 evenings you never get back. A weekend trip does not cost $1,000. It might cost 2 weeks of margin your future self desperately needed. A luxury car upgrade does not cost $500 more a month. It might cost the exact investing capacity that would have let you stop begging your employer for raises within a decade. People laugh when I say that many promotions are pay cuts in formal clothing, but I mean it. A raise is not automatically an improvement if it comes wrapped in more commuting, more appearance pressure, more stress behavior, more emotional spillover, more dependence on convenience, and more surrender of mindshare after hours. You can process more dollars through your bank account while becoming less profitable as a human enterprise. That is why status is such a dangerous drug. Status spending often arrives disguised as progress. Bigger role, better title, nicer clothes, more dinners out. Different neighborhood, new car, because now it would look strange not to. The entire social ladder is lined with shadow taxes, and a shocking number of them increase faster than the income they supposedly celebrate. People call them golden handcuffs because the outside shines. I call them a margin collapse in a silk tie. The deeper problem is psychological. Once your fixed costs rise to match the identity of the new role, your freedom shrinks. And when freedom shrinks, your negotiating power collapses. Now you cannot say no to a bad boss. You cannot say no to a foolish transfer. You cannot say no to a strategy you do not respect. You cannot say no to stupid meetings because your whole financial architecture requires continued compliance. That is not success. That is expensive obedience. I have spent my life studying incentives. If you want to know why people behave badly in finance, look at the incentive system around them. The same principle applies to your own life. If your expense base is too high and your shadow tax too thick, you will be forced into short-term behavior, even if you are intelligent enough to know better. You will stay in the wrong environment longer. You will postpone investing. You will accept worse treatment. You will rationalize bad spending because your nervous system wants immediate relief. You will start confusing motion for progress and consumption for compensation. That is how smart people stay stuck for 20 years. Not because they are stupid, because the structure around them rewards surrender and punishes reflection. This is also why cheap advice annoys me. When people say, just spend less, they are describing the symptom without diagnosing the machine. A person under heavy shadow tax does not merely need more discipline. They need more margin, lower friction, better systems, fewer leaks, calmer routines, and eventually a different relationship with work itself. Discipline matters, of course it does, but discipline is strongest when the environment stops charging you a cognitive toll for every good decision. A person who works close to home has an advantage. A person who works partly remote has an advantage. A person who is allowed to dress simply has an advantage. A person who does not need to buy recovery every weekend has an advantage. A person whose work does not invade the evening has an advantage. A person whose income can be converted into ownership fast has an advantage. These are not lifestyle details. These are margin variables. The rich understand this instinctively, even when they cannot explain it elegantly. They buy time, they buy proximity, they buy calm, they buy better defaults, they buy fewer emergencies. They buy help that protects energy instead of just advertising success. The poor and the merely comfortable often do the opposite. They spend their best years leasing appearance while selling time at a discount. That is a miserable trade. You do not want a life that looks expensive if the operating margin is weak. You want a life that becomes stronger every year, even if no one on social media applauds it. I have no interest in performative wealth. It is fragile, it is loud, it usually depends on continued labor extraction. I am interested in real wealth, and real wealth begins when the gap between income and need becomes durable enough to defend. That defense starts with truth. And the truth is that your wage is lower than you think if you insist on ignoring the shadow tax. So what should you do with that knowledge? First, stop measuring your life with gross income. Gross income is what the labor market advertises. Real hourly profit is what you keep after the full system cost of working has been counted. That is the number you should respect. Put it somewhere visible. Make it hard to forget. Price your life with it. Second, audit every work-generated expense with hostility. Commute, parking, car wear, office wardrobe, lunches, convenience food, coffee bought from exhaustion, paid services that exist because your job schedule eliminated your capacity to do simple things. None of this is neutral. Every one of these dollars is a vote either for the continuation of the trap or for your eventual exit. Third, audit your time, honestly. Do not flatter the job. The job will not return the favor. Count preparation time, count travel time, count forced idle time, count decompression time, count spillover attention, count the recovery window that belongs to the employer even when the employer does not pay for it. When you count honestly, you stop worshiping fake hourly rates. Fourth, identify your damage spending. Everybody has a category. Some people eat their stress. Some people drink it. Some people wear it. Some people stream it. Some people travel it. Some people gamble it away a little at a time through endless convenience. The label does not matter, the mechanism does. If work is injuring your judgment and then selling you relief, that relief belongs on the expense side of the work equation. Fifth, protect your gap like a fanatic. You do not need a glamorous strategy first. You need surplus that survives the month. The person with a smaller income and a protected gap is often far closer to freedom than the person with a larger income and a lifestyle designed to consume every visible dollar sixth. Pursue raises in margin before you pursue raises in vanity. Working from home part of the week can be a raise. Reducing commute can be a raise. Moving closer can be a raise. Cutting appearance pressure can be a raise. Learning to prepare food in batches can be a raise. Refusing to finance status can be a raise. A calmer job with slightly lower pay can be a raise if the shadow tax falls hard enough. The labor market will never describe these choices in the language of wealth, because the labor market does not care whether you become free. It cares whether you remain usable. Seventh, convert recovered margin into ownership immediately. Do not let the savings melt into random consumption. Every dollar not paid to the shadow tax should have a destination. Emergency reserves first, high-interest debt elimination, if you are bleeding there. Then ownership, broad index funds, productive assets, skills that raise future earning power. Small business experiments. If you have the temperament. Anything that shifts you 1 inch away from pure worker logic and 1 inch toward owner logic. That shift matters because workers sell time. Owners accumulate claims. Workers live on throughput. Owners live on spread. Workers need the next paycheck. Owners slowly reduce the number of people who can frighten them. I have no romance about this. It takes time. It takes repetition. It takes refusing stupid purchases when your peers call you cheap. It takes offending your own ego. It takes seeing a title as a possible trap instead of automatic progress. It takes understanding that comfort and freedom are not the same thing. Comfort can be rented. Freedom must be built. There is another uncomfortable truth here. Some jobs are not fixable because their shadow tax is too high. I am not telling you to act recklessly. Bills are real. Families are real. Health insurance is real. But you should know when the machine is structurally against you. If a job requires long commutes, constant image maintenance, costly geography, emotional spillover, endless convenient spending, and no path to ownership, then you are not in a career. You are in a consumption support system disguised as a career. The system does not merely use your labor. It shapes your spending so you will remain dependent on selling more labor. That is why so many people work harder and still feel no stronger. They are pedaling a bicycle connected to their own shopping cart. I never want you to forget that image, a bicycle connected to your own shopping cart. Every extra push moves the burden with you. That is what many middle-class lives look like. More effort, more velocity. Same captivity. The escape begins with subtraction before it begins with ambition. Cut what the system taught you to accept as normal. Cut the purchases that only exist because work made you tired enough to seek relief. Cut the symbols that advertise seriousness to people whose opinions will not finance your retirement. Cut the convenience that costs you future ownership. Cut the recurring leaks that keep your gap too small to matter. Then build a buffer, build a calmer routine, build automatic investing. Build skills that compound. Build distance between your lifestyle and your title. Build the ability to survive job changes without panic. Build the nerve to say no. That last one is especially important. Refusal power is one of the most underrated assets in the world. When you have money in reserve, low fixed costs, and less shadow tax exposure, you can refuse bad terms. You can refuse manipulative bosses. You can refuse desperate career moves. You can refuse the upgrade everybody else thinks is mandatory. You can refuse the apartment that swallows your future. You can refuse the car note that changes your ambition. You can refuse to medicate your exhaustion with purchases. People think wealth is what you can buy. A more useful definition is this. Wealth is a number of things you no longer have to say yes to. That number rises when margin rises. Margin rises when the shadow tax falls. This is not glamorous. It is not viral. It is not the kind of advice that flatters your ego at a party. It is better than that. It works. If you want the shortest possible summary, here it is. Do not ask what your salary is. Ask what your life keeps. Do not ask what a promotion pays. Ask what it takes. Do not ask whether you can afford the purchase. Ask how many clean hours of your life it consumes after all the hidden taxes have been collected. Do not ask whether your spending is normal. Ask who benefits from normal. Do not ask whether you look successful. Ask whether your margin is strong enough to survive a shock and still buy ownership. And above all, do not let the language of employment trick you into forgetting the language of enterprise. Your life is an enterprise. If the margins are weak, the headline does not save you. If the shadow tax is too high, the salary does not protect you. If your gap never survives the month, the title is just decoration on a fragile machine. I want you to picture two people tonight. The first makes more money, drives farther, dresses for strangers, eats from fatigue, drinks from stress, shops from depletion, checks email at dinner, and tells himself he is doing well because the gross number sounds adult. The second makes less, lives closer, owns an older car or no car, cooks more, spends less to be seen, protects evenings, invests the gap, and quietly increases refusal power every year. One of these people looks richer. The other one is getting richer. That difference will decide entire lives. I have made a lot of money by understanding the difference between what something looks like and what it earns. I am telling you that many modern careers look much better than they earn. Once the shadow tax is honestly counted, they are mediocre businesses wearing luxury branding. You should not hate yourself for being caught in that system. You should understand it so clearly that the spell breaks. Anger is useful when it becomes arithmetic. Arithmetic is useful when it becomes action. Run your own numbers. Not someday, not when you feel inspired. Do it while the discomfort is fresh. Write down the money that actually lands. Write down the costs that exist because the job exists. Write down the real hours the job owns. Write down the damage spending you have been pretending is unrelated. Then divide, and when the number stares back at you, do not look away. That number is not an insult, it is a door. Most people will shut it because they would rather keep their story than face their ledger. That is their choice. Your choice is different. You can continue selling your life at the price printed on the brochure, or you can start pricing it like an owner. You can keep calling exhaustion a reward cycle, or you can name it correctly and stop financing it. You can keep building a life that requires obedience, or you can build one that slowly earns the right to refuse. I would choose very carefully here because the consequences compound. Every year you ignore the shadow tax, you do not just lose money. You lose negotiating power, you lose time, you lose investment years, you lose calm, you lose the muscle of saying no. You lose pieces of life so slowly that the theft feels ordinary. Then one day you wake up with a decent salary, a tired body, an overbuilt lifestyle, a thin balance sheet, and a frightening dependence on people you do not even respect. That is not a financial plan. That is a trap with payroll. Break it while you still have enough years left for the gap to grow into freedom.